Hello and welcome to another edition of Blow Your Mind Learning with Lyle Dilly. Welcome to a new edition of Blow Your Mind Learning with me, Lyle Dilly. We're here to learn a really cool editing technique in Premiere Pro. I know it's been a while since I put out a video. Wanted to get a new thing. I know it's not a new studio. We got a new title card, a little bit more new feeling, and a new software, Premiere Pro. I know a lot about all the Adobe software, and a lot of people have been asking me questions about this, so I wanted to do this. A little bit of background, as you may know, Premiere Pro and After Effects are in tandem. After Effects does a lot of digital effects and stuff, and Premiere Pro does the editing part. Some can work in tandem with another. Premiere Pro has gotten a lot more effects added to it throughout the last few years. And one of the problems, though, with After Effects is that After Effects, you need to digitally render out the effects that you do, and sometimes it can be really time-consuming. If you're in a crunch, that could be a big deal. You could even do rendering in Premiere Pro, but it's very slow and kind of clumsy, in my opinion. So what we're going to learn is how to animate it manually, how to physically do that using some slight animation techniques, and quickly get through something like if you want to blur somebody's face, you want to do some stuff. It's not as precise as some of the other techniques, but it is a lot faster. All right, so let me go ahead and get started. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to blur this lovely man's face. So you can't see it anymore. There are some cool rendering things and some stuff, but we're going to use a masking effect, okay? So I'm going to mute this right now. We don't need to hear them right now. We just need to kind of see what they're doing. All right. But if you notice in this clip, he's going left to right, up and down a little bit. So there's some movement in here, and I want to follow the movement of his head in this animation, okay? So I've imported the clip, made a new sequence, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a effect. I'm going to use camera blur this time. This effect actually can work with a lot of these different blurs, but I'm going to go ahead and just use a straight camera blur to this, okay? You notice when I add a camera blur to it, it blurs the entire effect, okay? Because that's what it does. When you add an effect, it affects the whole thing, okay? What we want to do is add a quick mask, and this mask is going to allow us to put this particular effect in a certain area, okay? All right. So if you look over here in the effects controls Porsche window, okay, you're going to see that camera blur has been added. I've selected here, right? And when I select here and go to effects controls, you can see that camera blur has been added or dragged onto the scene, okay? So what I want to do is I want to use this, which is the free draw Bezier. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to use this to actually draw around his face. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to click the free draw, and I'm going to go ahead and quickly, does not have to be super precise yet, click around his head. Okay? Clicking to where I think it would best be drawn around his head. And if you notice now, it goes directly around his head. Okay? There may be other aspects of this may I want to, but remember, once you draw this mask, you can add more points by just clicking on it. You can even drag some of these points around, okay? So if I want to get his face a little bit better, say the bottom of its chin, I can easily do that, okay? Now, what's going to happen with this mask now, though, is it's going to remain stationary. It's not going to move. That's the whole point of just adding a simple mask to it. It's not going to move, but of course that's not going to do, okay? So what we're going to want to do is animate it. And one thing that I love about this is that you can animate it via points and even size. So scale is not an issue when it comes to this. Size is not an issue. Even shape, it can change the shape to match what's going on in the scene as long as you can animate it, okay? I like to animate with a good left to right kind of thing, okay? So if it's left to right or right to left as a start, so we animate on endpoints, okay? So what I want to do right now is I notice that his head is right there, but I'm going to go to the far left-hand side of it, okay? Then I'm going to press this magical button right here, which is this, okay? This is to toggle the animation, to get it started, okay? Actually, before I do that, before I go to that piece, I need to toggle it at the first frame. Super important. I didn't do that. I'm telling you right now, it's going to be very, very important that you toggle it to the first frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to toggle this in the first frame, okay? So, and you're going to see this little kind of triangle, diamond shape that's going to happen over here in the corner, okay? And every time you add a new animation path, it's going to add a new diamond, all right? So, before, see, he's kind of just talking right now, and before the camera moves, I want to go ahead and understand when the camera starts moving. There it starts moving. So, to really get this precise, I'm going to go ahead and add another path to it by adding a keyframe. This little button is adding a keyframe. If I add the keyframe, you'll notice right here, okay, that it added a keyframe. Now, if I click on the actual path itself, okay, you're going to get these things. I can go ahead and adjust it now, which will actually animate these adjustments. It'll actually make it bigger or smaller depending on how I'm animating it from keyframe to keyframe. So not only can it motion from left to right, but it also can recognize the size. Okay? If you notice, these points right here are moving as I'm scrubbing through the animation. So if I scrub it to here, which I think is a big point, I can move the actual thing in it. When I move it, look what happens. It actually adds a keyframe the moment I move it on that frame. That's why it's really important for you to figure a good front point to an end point, right? So once I do that, I can go ahead and take it to this big portion and really get the rest of his hair right here, okay? Because that's what I'm trying to go for. And it's going to animate. Ooh, look, his head pokes out right there. I'm going to go ahead and make this bigger. Automatically adds another keyframe to that point. But you notice, anybody who has anything, when you start working with these paths and you actually start working with tracking, it's going to make a keyframe per. But this kind of technique only makes a keyframe per change in the animation, which makes fixing it a lot easier. So now if I need to fix something, I'm just making minute adjustments to these particular frames rather than trying to go and remove all the frames and redoing it from scratch, which if anybody has anything knows that that's something that can happen. In this tutorial, that's what we're trying to avoid. Ah, look, there's his face. I'm going to go ahead and pull that out. All right? Really capturing his face, but if you notice, it's getting bigger and smaller with each frame. All right, so that's the largest part right there. Let's go ahead and make it bigger here. You know, in this kind of animation, it's going to be bigger, but anybody who's ever tracking, you'll notice that this part takes forever, and you can't make adjustments. So now, look at how big and small, oh, right there. So we're really just trying to spread through this and really get these finer points taken care of for this particular animation. Okay, almost done. All right, this is good for now. What I want to do now, get to the end part here, when he starts moving. Okay, what I want to do is I want to kind of scrub back and forth, and when he's moving from left to right here, I want to find that furthest position, which is about there, okay? Now, I've already got this keyframe right here, and I'm going to want to add a new keyframe of his position all the way over here to the left, okay? I'm even going to resize it to match his head a little bit better. Okay? Make sure I get all of his hair. Now, what you'll notice is that it's automatically going to follow his head. It's not going to be precise yet. Let's see how it's following his head. Now, what I could do is I can now go about in between and see where another big change is and go ahead and adjust that particular keyframe precisely. Make sure I get all his hair, right? And these minute adjustments really make a big difference when it comes to that final result, right? I'm only making very few individual changes to this, okay? Let me do that right here. Just move this over. Bam. All right. Now we're going to go back to the other direction, okay? When I go back to the other direction, I'm going to go ahead and move this over his face the other direction and see how it's following in the other direction. All right? If you look, it's really doing a good job of following this person from point A, left or right, to point B. Sometimes it's going to get down. Sometimes it's going to get up. And the key is to mess with these individual points, to adjust them as necessary, right? But also to follow the person around, you know? So as I'm doing this, I can really precisely manage what is going on. All right, let's play this for just a second. Wow, it's nicely precise. It's getting into what he's doing and talking without doing it. Now, you notice that there are going to be key parts where he might actually filter out a little bit. There is an adjustment for this, okay? So that you don't have to keep going back and forth. And this is one of the real benefits, especially if you're doing blurring, to how instead of going back through, if you've got it precise enough, you can do one more thing, okay? And that is this button here, which is called mask expansion. So you can go beyond the edges here and do it. So if I do just a good 15% expansion, just 15% more than what was done before, okay, you're going to find that those little bits of hair, or maybe the nose just kind of pops out, will magically go away, and it won't matter anymore. Look at that, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this version of Blow Your Mind with Lyle Dilly. Doing these kind of masks and effects within Premiere Pro is a big time saver without having to go to Adobe. It's not as precise. I mean, if you're trying to do some movie stuff, obviously After Effects is the way to go. But if you're really just trying to get through some of these and really just make sure that it's effective, this is the way to go. I mean, it's a lot faster, it's more precise, and it's more forgiving. Making quick changes to this, if you send this to somebody and they go, oh man, his eye, you know, I saw his nose for a second. I mean, if you had done this in other software, you'd be like, oh man, that's another couple hours of me going there and almost redoing it. Here, you open up the file that you saved, you make a slight adjustment, re-export it, you're done. This is a huge time saver, especially if you're doing these kind of effects over and over and over again. So I hope you learned something today, and I'll see you guys next time.